Hi. So this session's discussion or interview is titled Artificial Intelligence and Empowerment. Is AI a threat, a blessing, or maybe a bit of both? Hi, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jayam. My profession is a consultant in digital customer experience platforms, whereby I help organizations enhance their customers' digital experience. One of my personal passions is also looking at ways of effective communication to drive awareness and action towards social causes. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Manoj Agrawal. Manoj, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here.
It's a pleasure. I know it's a bit more later in the day today, and so I appreciate you taking the time to join us. And
Yeah.
a happy Deepavali to you as well.
Yeah, same to
Is
you.
it
Happy Diwali. Yeah.
is it a holiday over there today or tomorrow?
Actually, it's not. It's not. And incidentally, we are one day behind. So it's still the previous day, right? So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
actually going to
yeah.
be tomorrow here. Yeah.
All right. Okay, great. Manoj, a quick introduction to Manoj. Manoj is the founder and chief innovation officer at Tetra Noodle. I think I said that properly. A boutique artificial intelligence and a big data consultancy firm. He's also the author of two books on technology. He's a mentor and a leader in startup community, and he also has four patents in artificial intelligence. Thank you, Manoj, very much for joining us.
Yeah.
I thought we will start off by letting the audience get to know you a little bit more, because of course I'm pretty excited because I dabbled and in my personal interest do think and research about AI, but it's great to speak to someone who is in the thick of it and involved daily. So I wanted to ask you. I read a little bit about your story. So you went from a $2 day job to being really curious about computers and technology, and then now today you're an expert and a leader in innovation and technology. Can you share with us a little bit about what inspired you to actually focus on artificial intelligence?
Well, the way that technology works is, especially if you're a curious person, if you want to stay on the bleeding edge, um, and if you're involved in industry projects, organically you start to get involved in latest technologies. So technologies move fast, very very fast these days, right? And companies who are forward thinking, they always want to utilize latest technologies to solve complex problems. And so having worked with Fortune 500 companies, um, anytime a new technology comes up, I sort of try to get involved in that as quickly as possible. But that is not to say that every technology is useful. So I wait around until it has a little bit more maturity, and it has some practical solutions that companies can implement. And then so artificial intelligence, I started getting involved in that around early 2010. But then after, in around 2014 or so, started getting heavily involved in new projects. Um, Actually, the first patent that I got was around in a project that I was involved in, educational technology with artificial intelligence. That was around 2012. So since then I have been constantly sort of working on these latest technologies. And then blockchain came along. So around 2015 I started getting involved in blockchain. uh, and uh, and that's the way the life or a profession of a technologist goes. Like, if you're curious about it, you obviously want to stay ahead of the game and get involved in these technologies. And it's a lot of fun to learn about the power of these technologies and how they can change the world.
Yeah, Mustaf, I know it was a bit of a general question because I understand, as we'll discover more with the conversation, AI has a possibility to impact every area of our life, right? So it's not like one niche area that you're focusing on. It's essentially almost everything. Okay, great. You also touched on a patent, and I know in your introduction, I would like to get to know a bit more about that patent, the four patents that you have. But I thought we'll start off the session by, I feel like from my personal experience that people don't still quite fully understand what AI is. Some people might have some very, far-reaching ideas. So, for the purpose of today's discussion, maybe we could I'll guide the conversation in three main areas. Let's define what AI is, some of the applications of AI, and also we will address some of the challenges and misconceptions. So to start things off, um, Manoj, how would you describe artificial intelligence to someone who's never heard of it before? And if you could also explain in the how that is different from computing technology that we've been using all this time for the past 20 plus
Yeah,
years.
yeah. Yeah, at the simplest level, artificial intelligence is a technology that finds patterns that work in the real world. That is very much similar to how we live our lives. So when a child is born, they they find a pattern that, hey, if I touch the stove, that they only need one data point to learn that I should not be touching the stove, otherwise I'll get hurt, right? So that is how our intelligence develops, by collecting some data from the world and seeing, okay, what is beneficial to us and what is not beneficial to us, and then we retain that pattern in our memory, and then the next time that situation arises, we utilize that pattern to conduct ourselves. It's the same exact thing. Artificial intelligence, at the core, at the basic level, it takes in the data from the real world. Good example is product recommendations on Amazon. So what it
Mhm,
does is it collects all the data from different shoppers, and they say, okay, these shoppers bought this item in their cart, these shoppers bought this item, so let me find the patterns that are common between these people. If they bought this, then they bought this. If they bought this, then they bought this. So now you can see the power of artificial intelligence is that we can actually combine the experience of multiple people into one pattern. So in my previous example I gave, the child only had one data point, their own experience, right? So we
mhm,
all grow up with our own experience. We can share a little bit of our experience with others through books and language and stuff like that, but we can't really give it a meaningful a meaningful form where I can tell you, hey, Sanjay, use this experience that I've had, right? Now, with artificial intelligence, that data is synthesized, it is converted into a form where I can use it, you can use it, we can all benefit from it. So, so basically, that's what it is. And the other aspect of artificial intelligence is that as the machine power grows, as the number of data points grow, it can go into very detailed and complex dimensions. Like, again, as I said earlier, touching the stove is a very simple example. It's just
mhm,
whether you touch it or not, like two states,
mhm,
right? Now let's add a little bit more complexity to it. Like, let's say if the stove is on medium height, then it's not that
mhm,
it's not that hurtful. And what is the height of that stove, how high is it, and some other dimensions that will affect what experience you get in this world, right? So now, if the child has to take all these combinations and say, okay, if the stove is this high and it is this hot, then it is harmful. But if it's lower than that, or so and so forth, that will create many permutations. So now you see how the complexity starts to grow, and our human
yeah,
mind is not able to comprehend all these things, right? And we don't even have enough time or resources to go out and test all these scenarios and say, okay, definitely these are the harmful cases and these are the okay cases. But with artificial intelligence, we are combining the experience of multiple human beings. We have humongous amount of resources, we have humongous amount of data to crunch through, and that is the power of artificial intelligence. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I'm sure it makes sense to the audience as well. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, the complexities that you talked about, you gave a simple example, and then I could see from the second example you gave about height and as well as the actual temperature of the stove that this can be extrapolated to then morality, questions of morality and ethics as well. So it can get very, very complex. So how do you build these systems? Because basically we're creating a system that replicates human learning, if I understand correctly.
That's right. Not only
Yeah.
human
So,
learning, but it can combine
yeah.
learning from the elements, from the environment. So we can say, okay, tell me how it will work if the temperature of the environment is very very cold. Like let's say we
Hmm.
are living in Antarctica and we touch the stove. Is the experience different? Right. So we can combine those data elements as well.
Mm, okay, great. Actually, yeah. So since there are so many different categories of artificial intelligence, I understand from a little bit of the research that there are four main categories, right? Could you speak a little bit more about what those categories are and how they might be different from each other?
See, every day there are new categorizations, new nomenclatures are coming up. I
Mm,
try to keep it simple, right? So, um, uh, when we look at the human experience, artificial intelligence is trying to replicate that human experience. So, one field of artificial intelligence is this finding these patterns in data and then providing some decisions. Another form is computer vision, which is helping computers see what we can see, so it can actually process images, videos, and such. Now another field is auditory, so sound synthesis. And the ultimate version of artificial intelligence that we are all working towards is called general artificial intelligence. So
mm,
right now, as I said earlier, these patterns, these models that create the decision points for a particular task, they are very specific to some task they have been trained for. So let's say if we go back to the example of Amazon shopping product recommendation, that model, artificial intelligence model, cannot do anything else, right?
mm.
It can only do product recommendations. But a human mind, I mean, we can multitask. We can come into a new situation, and then even if we don't have any idea what is going on, slowly we can start to learn and then figure out, okay, this is how we need to conduct ourselves. That is what's called general artificial intelligence, where we can apply our intelligence in any situation. And that is what the ultimate form of artificial intelligence that the world is trying to get to.
Yep, yep. Great, fantastic. A quick trivia question, Manoj. What is a movie that has the theme of AI in that you like or that sticks out to you?
Oh, so as you know, my background and passion is combining human psychology and technology. And
Mm,
if you want to watch that play out in actual sort of a very in a deeper meaning way, watch the first Matrix movie, because it
mm,
really reflects how our world, real world works, how artificial intelligence sort of works. And uh, like I could spend hours and hours talking about it, but there's a very deep hidden meaning in that movie. And yeah, I highly recommend that.
great. I think it's due a rewatch for me. I haven't watched Matrix in a long while, and I think they're coming out with a new one as well. For me personally, the most recent one that really jogged my brain was Ex Machina. Have you watched that?
No, no.
Okay. I think check it out. It's again about psychology and then that blurry
Which one
line
is it?
between
Can you say that again? X.
Ex Machina.
Okay, okay.
EXMACHINA, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Okay, I'll check it out. I'll
Yeah.
check it out.
Great. Thanks, Manoj. Okay, so for the first segment, I thought let's sorry, for the next segment, let's talk about a bit about the positive impacts of AI. And as if we've already talked about it, there's a lot of implications. So maybe for this segment, let's focus on three main areas on how AI is going to impact our lives. Right. Number one, business and work, our personal lives, our relationships, our family. And then the third part, society, humanity, and community at large. Could you just share a little bit more about where you see AI is going to influence these three areas and maybe an example?
Yeah, the business aspect is, already being affected, as we can see all around us. Yeah. So anything that we want, uh, in terms of information, uh, the first thing we do is Google it. Google is all about artificial intelligence. We
Mm,
cannot even fathom going through our day without interacting with artificial intelligence at some level or the other. When we want to buy, e-commerce is growing like crazy these days, right? And the product recommendations, as I said earlier, the reviews, the search to find the exact product that we are looking for, they're all related to artificial intelligence. We use Alexa, Siri in our homes. Now this is more personal use, but at the end of the day, these are business products, right?
mm,
And the next wave is going to be where some many jobs will be automated, will be replaced. So we are seeing that, self-driving cars are becoming a norm now. There
mm,
are about 10 million, which is 10 million driving jobs in US alone, which is one of the largest segments of employment in US. Right, that is the
mm,
one
mm,
of the largest segments where people are involved in driving vehicles as a living. And
mm,
within next 10 years, most likely most of those will be eliminated, because the cars will drive themselves, and it will actually make the road safer and whatnot. So these are some of the examples of how AI is going to affect business. Clerical jobs, where we have things like accountants whose job is to double check the documents, file tax returns. I mean, these will not be needed to be done by human beings. I have been personally involved in many projects in healthcare where AI has been diagnosing, giving diagnosis about certain diseases much better than doctors who have been in the field for 10, 20 years. So
mm,
these kind of things, again, going back to my example of finding the patterns,
mm,
wherever humans have been involved to find the patterns, those jobs will be replaced by artificial intelligence. And that will be a huge impact on business, on our lives, and whatnot, right? And I can go deeper into that. The next one was personal lives. Uh, so carrying forward that notion, when our jobs will be replaced, you see, I always give this example. What happened around 200 years ago, when steam engine was invented, industrial revolution started, and we were at the
mm,
same crossroads. Hey, what will happen to people who are driving horses? Oh,
mm.
sorry, like
Awesome.
plowing the fields, or
Yeah.
whatnot, right? They will lose their jobs. But they found new jobs, because the
Mm,
factories needed people to run the machines, fix the machines, clean the machines. All those things were needed, right? So as artificial intelligence replaces these jobs, our minds will be free to do other things. So
mm,
going back to your point, we will gravitate towards things which give us more fulfillment, spending time with our family, counseling to others, listening to others, solving their problems, building communities. These are the things that drive us inherently, at a
mm,
deep psychological level. But
mm,
since we have to spend 8 hours a day at work, we are not able to do that. Now if AI takes over, that time will be freed up, and we will be able to devote it to better causes, right? So that is what how family life will change. And what was the third one, sorry?
society and humanity at large. How is
Yes,
it going to change the
society.
way we live? Yeah, yeah.
See, society in will change in slowly over time, in the way that, in my opinion, materialistic thinking will start to subside, and
Mm,
more human connection, more human qualities will become more valuable. And I can explain the reason is that, see, the industrial age has brought in a lot of vanity, right? In the industrial age, we judge each other by the phone we are carrying, by the kind of clothes we are wearing, by the shoes we are wearing, or the car we are driving. um, and and now, that is what drives the economic engine, because we judge the other person right away and say, oh, you know what, I need to do business with this person because he looks like he has something of value here, right? But now let's say AI is making those decisions. AI is not going to look at the other AI and say, oh, oh, that algorithm looks really cool, I need to do business with it. So it will be very objective, right? So there will not be a need to for us to wear this facade of shiny things anymore. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen tomorrow. Humans are going to still have that urge to show off a little bit, but there's not going to be a necessity as such. And as I said earlier, since our inherent desire is to connect, it will free us up to not judge people based on how they look like, what they wear, and things like that. But it will be more like, okay, hey, this person looks interesting. He or she is talking about interesting things. Let me connect with this person. So as a whole, as this starts to happen, society will start to change, and I believe people will start to come together. The other thing is that we are experiencing war, we are experiencing famine, we are experiencing hunger. you know these are big problems. For example, war um, will be replaced with cyber wars. Now, I'm not going to go into whether that'll be more dangerous or less dangerous, but at the end of the day, there will be less bloodshed. That much we know, right? Because computers can fight with each other all day long. At least it will not cause human life, right? Secondly, things like hunger, things like disease. Let's take the vaccines. We were able to beat the pandemic very quickly because artificial intelligence was used to create the vaccines very quickly, right? Similarly, hunger has food problems. Now, artificial intelligence is being used to optimize food production, to create new methods of producing food, preserving food, providing more nutrition. All these things are something that uh, computers can do much faster, much better than humans can. So all these things are going to take us into a positive direction.
Great, thank you, Manoj. Manoj, I was listening to your interview with Andrea. I think you had one a couple of weeks ago, and you touched on a point how your interest in psychology and artificial intelligence also enhanced your spiritual practice. Can you speak a little bit about how
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
has helped your spiritual practice?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what happened was that as I was going through the experience of learning more about artificial intelligence, I got into meditation.
Mm,
And then anybody who meditates, they will attest to that. But let me explain very quickly what happens when you start to meditate. Basically, you start to notice your own thoughts and
mm,
monitor them as a third person. So you can see what
mm,
is going on in your mind and how it is affecting your life. And when you see that, you start to notice that in other people as well, and say, oh, this person thinks like that, that's why he's getting or she's getting this kind of result. And
mm,
then when you start to combine that, when you see that in the world, and you see the same thing happening with artificial intelligence, like on social media, on Facebook, and things like that, you then at least for me, the points connected very well, that, oh, we think very different, everybody thinks very differently, and artificial intelligence is trying to figure out the patterns between people who are thinking commonly and trying to bring them
mm,
together. Now, it brings us together in a way because social media platforms, they can only make money if they keep people on their platforms longer. And inherently, we as human beings, we get attached to things where we can sensationalize things more. Like, that's why
mm,
you know uh, bad news sell better than any good news. So these algorithms on social media, they are designed to create more conflict, because they know when we get into conflict we will be commenting 100 times more than if we say, hey, this is pretty cool, Sanjay, what you're doing is cool, high five, and that'll be the end of the conversation, right? Nobody cares about that. But if I say, Sanjay, what the hell, man, this doesn't make sense to me, what are you talking about, you'll come back with your argument, I'll come back with my counter argument. And we see that going in many posts, we see that going on and on and on and on. So that is parallel I see between human psychology and how artificial intelligence is being used today. But the fact is, technology is neutral, meaning it is inherently not going to
Good or
uh,
bad. Yeah.
be, yeah, it is not going to say that I'm only going to be used for good or bad. Now it is up to us to use it for good. So what we do is we utilize the same technology, but we help to unlock people's potential. We help
Yeah.
grow businesses. We help with bringing communities together and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. I had this conversation with one of my ex-bosses, and they were asking a question about. I mean, I was involved with Microsoft at the time, so he was just asking a general question of, is good or bad? I gave the example. It's like an axe or a hammer. A hammer can be used to really hurt someone, or it
Exactly,
could be used
exactly.
to build a house.
Yeah,
So it's not
exactly.
exact. It's not the tool itself. It's the goal that you put in mind and how you apply it that really
Exactly.
makes a difference. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Manoj. Manoj, before we go into some of the dangers, one last question on some of the benefits or some of the, I wanted to uncover, from your perspective. So you have children, right? You came from a world which was even pre-personal computers, and now you're heavily involved in AI. I'm quite sure that your children's age, they would have already came into this world with already some form of AI.
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
do you see
yeah.
the differences, and how do you see their development different from maybe the earlier generations?
Yeah, of
People who,
course, of course. Huge difference, huge difference, right? So, see, the biggest difference is that we grew up. I mean, I'm not. We. You look much younger than me, but I won't assume. Um, I grew up, looking for information in every corner wherever I could find. So, what do I mean by that? Like, when I was curious about learning about computers, I remember one computing programming book used to cost 50 rupees, so which was like almost $2, right?
mm,
And that used to be like quite a bit of money for me, and I could hardly afford like one or two books, uh, eh, you know uh, and there was no YouTube to learn, there was
mm,
no Google to ask questions. So today, if somebody wants to learn anything, it doesn't matter, it could be as simple as learning to how to play guitar, or as crazy as, hey, I want to weave baskets sitting under the water, and at the bottom of the pool. And I'm serious about this, right? There are tutorials on these kind of topics. So the thing is that the amount of information and the accuracy
mm,
of information that is available is unprecedented, which means there is so much more potential for human growth, for human development now than it used to be 20-25 years ago. That is the main difference, right? That is the main difference. So um, and the kids are going to be much smarter, their reflexes are going to be much quicker. Unfortunately, that also means they'll be glued to the screens much longer.
mm, mm. Great. Yep. So essentially, in a nutshell, how the lives of your children has been a bit different is the access as well as the speed of being able to absorb knowledge and information
See,
has
yeah,
been enhanced by the use of AI.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's, see, the it's a we live in a world, it's a two-way street. Like, it's not just that, okay, we have information, it actually affects our minds. So
Mm,
when we have more information, our mind expands more rapidly. So
mm-hmm,
I could see that this generation that is growing up today, they will actually be able to do much more. They will be able to grow intellectually much faster. They will be able to grasp more complex paradigms much easier as they grow up. So access to information, obviously, is beneficial, but it also affects how we grow up and how our intellect develops, right?
Wow, so this is like new ways of even thinking. You're saying like I was associating with maybe someone who speaks natively Chinese or a Chinese dialect probably thinks a little bit differently to someone who speaks
Yeah,
in English.
exactly,
So
exactly.
someone who's already starting their learning development with AI and all this information in mind would probably really think differently as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Fantastic. Great. Manoj, you want to take a quick second to address the audience and we'll go into the next segment. I would just wanted to invite the audience, please do give in your comments. If there's any questions you have for Manoj, please type them in. Again, we still have those prizes for the most engaged audience. The top right screen, you also do see the QR code. Use your phone, scan, join the treasure hunt. So please do keep engaged and ask any questions. So Manoj, quickly going to the next segment. So we talked about some of the great benefits, but I understand there are so many applications, but there might be some things that we should be concerned about. And again, these concerns, I think you touched on a few worries as well. So let me focus on some of the concerns in three main areas again. So I understand one of the main concerns that people are talking about is who actually gets access to AI technology who might want to use it with malicious intent. So how do we protect the use of AI against malicious intent? The second one is we talked about also just now, the last thing we talked about is the inequality gap in terms of knowledge, age, wealth, right? Which seems to a lot of indicators, a lot of experts say that with the use of AI, this disparity is going to keep growing. So how do we? What are the concerns and thoughts about that? And the last one, we talked about AI, AGI, artificial general intelligence, right? So this talks about self-actualization, preservation, some of these fundamental things that as humans have. But if we build a system that has its own preservation algorithms, how do we prevent them thinking that we are obsolete? So I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but like if we could talk about some of the concern, those three main areas,
Sure. So
starting with control of manipulation design. Yeah.
yeah, so malicious attempt, malicious use of technology, we can argue about that, about anything that exists in the world, right? Let's take the let's take the wheel, right? The wheel was invented like millennia ago, and it basically allowed us to go from one point to another easily. But the same wheel can be used to, chop off somebody's head or hurt somebody in a very negative way.
Mm,
In fact, there are some weapons designed around that, right?
mm,
We could talk about when we discovered fire. It can nourish us, cook our food, but it can also destroy large parts of the population. So see, the thing is, technology is always neutral, and this is also true that we as human beings are always afraid of the unknown. So
mm,
if we look around the world, only, I will say, there are 1 to 2% of the events that happen which are negative in the world on everyday basis. 98% people, we all want the same thing out of life, like, we want peace, we want prosperity, happiness for our kids and all that. But that is not going to sell on the news. So when we watch the news, it's like, oh my god, this is, these many murders happened here, these many wars happening here. So the perception that we get is the world is on fire right now, and more bad news is coming. What the hell is going to happen when artificial intelligence comes? But the fact is that artificial intelligence is all around us right now, everywhere.
mm,
Even what we are doing right now, it could be, we could be doing live transcripts on this very call, and that is all
mm,
artificial intelligence. But so the thing is that, uh, I'm not worried about malicious use of technology. That is not going to be preventable, and this is not unique to artificial intelligence. But we
mm,
need to rely on the core fundamental goodness of human beings. We need to trust in that hey, yes, there will be some bad apples, but overall humanity is not interested in malicious use of technology. Overall humanity is interested in using technology for the good of humanity, and that is the fundamental truth. And if we can trust that, then everything else becomes easy, because then we can say, oh, AI can be used here as well. So then it becomes like, the next step will be who gets access to this technology. That again, you will see here, there is no evidence of this fear, because if if we if technology was something that was designed to be handed over to privileged people, then internet access would have been only designed for rich people, right?
mm,
So there is no, so you can see, as humanity is progressing, as technology is being used in our lives, it is becoming more democratized, right? It is becoming
mm,
more accessible. It is becoming even accessible to people with very little money, very little resources, right?
mm,
So there's absolutely no evidence that this is going to be used by rich people. In fact, a lot of the algorithms are open source. A lot of the technology that is used in artificial intelligence is completely open source. Now, people who can use this technology and they can really understand it, they have access to large amount of data, large amount of resources, like the governments or the large Silicon Valley companies. Of course, they will take these building blocks and create proprietary technologies that they can monetize. But that is not to say you and I cannot do that. It's just
mm,
that whoever takes action, whoever has the desire and the passion to devote their life towards that goal, the tools are available. It's not like we need to go and buy $1 million equipment to start writing an algorithm. I could take my laptop, which is $200 $300 laptop. Any student can collect data, and in fact there are a lot of free sets available. The governments are making free data sets available for you to start playing around with it. So there is no evidence that I can see that this is only going to be available to few, right? Okay, so hopefully that covers that part. What was the next part?
the last one about artificial general intelligence, right? If I understand the principle of AGI, it's also building a system that has self-preservation and self-actualization, the same core things that we have. What if it decides that their life is more worth than ours?
It's not like that. It's not like that. Artificial intelligence, the keyword here is artificial, right? Okay, so there is no algorithm that is being designed whose goal is to multiply or reproduce or preserve themselves. It is
Mm,
based on what it can do for the good of the world or the human beings. um, and the other thing is, you can see this evidence all around us. There is no other species, like, even if we look at other species in the world, right? There is no other species which goes to war, organized war with each other. Only humans have this notion of ambition, or notion of jealousy, or notion of uh, you know um, how can I say it, like, these negative emotions that drive us to do things onto our own members of species. So
mm,
when we talk about artificial intelligence, there is no, I cannot fathom that there's going to be an algorithm which will say that I really hate other species and hence I want to do something like that. I mean,
mm,
that kind of feeling comes from, at the fundamental level, um, uh, lack of self-esteem, because the ambition to take over the world is actually a representation of lack of self-esteem. So I want to increase my self-esteem, and that is why I want to suppress other people. Make sense? Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah, right.
somebody will have to design an algorithm to make the artificial intelligence feel less worthy,
Less helpful.
so that
Mm,
it becomes ambitious. So I can go into, like, it's very complex when you think about it. But
that.
it's good for Hollywood movies, but I don't think that will happen.
Okay, great. So, AGI, if I understand the artificial general intelligence, where are we on the timeline of achieving it? If I
Yeah,
understand, it's still quite
yeah.
early.
Very interesting question. So if people don't know about this, they should check out something called GPT-3. Okay, so
Mhm.
Elon Musk has a company called OpenMind, and they have released a model. It's called GPT-3, and in my opinion, it is the first step towards general artificial intelligence. So I was actually speaking to about 400 professors at the second largest university in US just last week, and I said the same thing. They asked me a question, what will we be talking about in 5 years about AI? So I said that, I think um, general artificial intelligence, we used to think that it will be like 20, 30 years, 40 years from now. But when you look at GPT-3, I believe it is the first step towards AGI. So in my opinion, we could be actually looking at the first versions of AGI in 5, 10 years.
5 to 10 years. Okay,
Yeah.
great. I thought it was much later than that, but 5 to 10 years is something to get excited and look forward to even now for someone who is a layperson not involved. So great. Yeah, actually, Manoj, you talked about Elon Musk. Now, I in my personal life, personal time, do research, hear what Elon Musk talks about. I found it very interesting how someone who is so embedded and involved in AI and use of AI is also talking and telling about warned, be wary of AI and the future implications. Kane, what's your thoughts on that? I found that a little bit contradictory. Why would he be
Well,
interviewing on that?
I mean, obviously, I don't want like if I, I obviously he may have his reasons. I cannot say what he knows. He has much more information about these things than I do. Um,
Hmm.
at the same time, again, this may sound controversial, but this is my true feelings. So I'll share it with you. Um, Elon Musk has shared that you know, he has this little bit of autism syndrome. I
Mm,
forget what the exact term was, right? Which basically sort of means that he's not able to feel the entire spectrum of human feelings.
mm,
Okay, so so this is where it gets a little bit philosophical. This world does not run on technology or commerce or anything else. This world runs on emotions and
mhm,
feelings, right?
mhm,
As I said earlier, when we go to war, it's actually a self expression of a feeling of feeling less than the other person.
mm,
Okay, so when you cannot feel the entire spectrum of human feelings, then you are not privy to how this world really works, and hence you
mm,
can come up with some diagnosis which can be scary, which can be like alarmist and stuff like that. But when you really understand what drives this world and how things are put together, how we collaborate at a fundamental level, at a human level, at a very, you know, uh, I won't use the word like, but at a spiritual level, right? How we connect with each other and we collaborate. Then you can see clearly that these fears are not based in reality,
mm.
right? If I can say though that now, once again, Asperger's syndrome. So all I can try to say is that I will not dare to contradict Elon Musk, but based on my understanding of how humans work, how this world has evolved, um, I really don't fear or I don't really find any basis of fear for artificial intelligence.
Okay, great, fantastic. Okay, but if I could just push back on one part, right, Manoj, before we move on to the next segment. So yeah, you did say, look, we cover the 3 points whereby malicious intent and even the the cautionary tale about the divide of who has access and who doesn't access. yes, traditionally it's always been used to good. It was more expensive, it got cheaper, and then applied to everybody. But the warning that people or experts say is with artificial intelligence technology now, right now, the rate of change is going to be so quick that it's going to be hard for the people who don't have access to adjust. Is this a concern for you, or how do we mitigate that issue?
See, the fact is this, right? Humans have become the most dominant species because of one single quality, which is our ability to adapt.
Mm,
Okay, so when we were cavemen, we figured out, hey, we need to build tools so that we can go get more efficient at killing animals and feed ourselves. So we adapted. Then there was an ice age, and we were trying to keep ourselves warm, and we started burning animal fat and things like that. Then we started traveling across continents to figure out, okay, where can we find food, shelter. So adaptability is the key quality of human beings, and that is what helps us invent things and whatnot. Now, there is a certain percentage of population which does not like change whatsoever. They don't
mm,
like to adapt, and unfortunately those people are going to, they suffer regardless. So there are
mm,
some people today, they don't want to use internet. They still carry around old phones from 15 years, 20 years. So
mm,
they are, it's not like their life is over, but they just don't enjoy the benefits that others are enjoying, right? They just don't get those opportunities that others are getting, right?
mm,
So
mm,
it is our personal choice whether we want to keep up with the time or not. It does take effort, it does take initiative, but um, at the end of the day, again going back to our human spirit, the spirit of survival that we have, it pushes us forward, right? So um, it, when you look at the revolutions, the technology revolutions that have happened, if we look back, they were very, very rapid. Like internet came onto the scene, say around 1990s, right? And we are here, uh, 30 years. It's not a long period of time, and we are connecting across the world,
mm,
halfway across the world, and people are watching us all over the world in 30 years. It is, and in any other industry, this will be lightning fast, rapid progress, right?
mm, yep,
Like, think about the car that was built, the first car that was built in 1920,
mm,
right? And we are in 2021, it still has four wheels, nothing major
mm,
has changed,
mm,
right? Okay, but it has revolutionized our world, because now we can
mm,
travel anywhere, right?
mm,
Look at the airplane, right? It had two wings, nothing has changed, right? Like, yes, we have modern airplanes and everything, but we are still debating about, hey, can we create a different kind of plane, can we create something else, right? So you can see that if you compare it with other industries, technology has progressed so rapidly, but we are adapting as we go every day, right?
mm,
And when
mm,
we adapt every day, it doesn't feel like, oh man, like, this is too fast, I don't know what the hell is going on, right? um,
mm, mm,
so but you have to be open to adapt to technology.
mm,
So if we are open, it will be transparent. It's not. And here is the beauty of how this all works. Companies will not be able to release something that people are not able to adapt, because there's not going to be
mm,
any profit in that.
mm,
They will
mm.
only be
Good
able to
point.
release something when there is adoption. So
Mm,
it's a self-balancing world we live in.
mm, mm. Understood. Yeah, that's a very fair point. Manoj, thank you so much for that. We've gone over time, so appreciate to really understand your thoughts and perspective. There was some great insights. I definitely learned a lot. I'm sure the audience did too. So before we close today's session, the last question is, of course, from what we just discussed, it's a self-balancing system. However, if I may say so, I believe digital literacy, understanding of AI, regardless of where you are in the world, in which place and which industry, understanding that would be important. On top of that, what are some of your parting words for the audience and people listening into this around AI? What should they be thinking about before we end the session?
I will just say, eh, uh, AI is nothing to fear about, and I don't think people need to understand it. Just like when we drive the car, I have no idea how the car works. I have no idea where is the carburetor, where does the fuel go. I just know I have a key. When I need to go somewhere, I turn the key, I go somewhere. So the parting words will be: there is no need to be afraid of the unknown. AI is here to help us. It's a revolutionary technology, and in most cases, it will be transparent to us. It'll be, it's like when we talk to Siri or Alexa, we don't know how the algorithms work, but we just use it, right? So there is no need for us to be afraid of it. But at the end of the day, if we want to embrace it, if we want to learn about it, just get a little bit information about it, and it will start to pull you in. And as you get more interested, you can get more and more engaged. It doesn't have to be on the technical side, but it could be on the business side, where you can say, hey, I see this scenario will benefit by applying technology. So getting involved in AI will actually help to alleviate those fears that people have of the unknown. Mute, you are on mute.
Apologies. Yeah. Thank you so much for the answer, Manoj. Thank you. Thank you for your time. So before we leave, please tell the audience how they can connect with you. And I must get this out of you. Can you just quickly also tell briefly what are those 4 patterns that you have right now on artificial intelligence?
Sure. So there are two patterns which are in variable fields. One of the key problems that some people face is that they have joint pains, and the reason why that happens is because they have flat feet, or they have some disfiguration in their feet, and especially if they have to stand on their feet all day long, that causes a posture problem, and that creates joint pain. So what we did was we created algorithms where we could take some images from a mobile phone of your feet and create a very, very accurate 3D model of your feet. So within 2 millimeters of accuracy. And when we create the 3D model, we put it through a 3D printer, which creates a custom support variable that goes into your shoe, and it corrects the posture of your feet and then helps with joint pain. So that those are two patterns. There is another one where one of the big problems in higher educational institutions is that people drop out of university college programs after 1 or 2 years, because they find that the topic that they selected, or the subjects they selected, they are of no interest to them. So this causes a big problem for the university, because they lose the student, and the student loses a chance to get the degree because they're demoralized, and they don't want to go back to university again. So what we did was created algorithms where we could take historical data of their school transcripts, their aptitude scores, interest levels, and then based on that recommend courses to them based on their interest. Just like Netflix recommends shows to us, we recommend courses to them. So then in this way, the people, students become more interested in the courses. They take 20% more courses, their dropout rates declined. And in this case, this program was mentioned by President Barack Obama in his speech, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation supported it. Actually, the previous patent that I mentioned, a $43 billion German conglomerate, the name is Bayer. A Bayer company licensed that technology, and they white labeled that product under their brand. And then the another one is about personalized learning, where right now every student in every class gets the same curriculum, whether they are at an advanced level or they are a little bit slow. So with personalized learning, what the system does is it can figure out, okay, you are let's say we are learning math, and you are at an advanced stage, so you can skip ahead a few lessons and go ahead to further ahead from the class. And let's say I'm slow in maths, then it will give me more material to learn, so that I can brush up on my math skills. So that is personalized learning pattern. So these are the four that I worked on.
Fantastic. And how can people connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, the best way is LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn or visit my website, manojagarwal.com. And yeah, email me from there.
Great. Thank you so much, Manoj. Appreciate your time. Have a great day and happy Diwali and a great week to you.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much. Thanks. It was so much fun. Thank
Bye
you so much.
bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Take care.